Well, Eli Lilly's weight loss drug Zepbound outperformed Novo Nordisk's in the first head-to-head trial sponsored by Lilly. Patients were found to lose an average of 20% of their body weight compared to 14% with Wegovy. Let's discuss all of this now with Dan Skavronsky. He is Eli Lilly's Chief Scientific Officer, also the president of Lilly Research Laboratories. Great to have you with us. You take a look at some of the reaction to these numbers. Bloomberg Intelligence writes that this results will be beneficial from a marketing perspective once they're on the label. Is the plan now to submit this to the regulators to get this on label?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Thanks for having me on the show. We're so thrilled by this data. As you pointed out, the first ever head-to-head study, 50 pounds weight loss on average for Zepbound versus 33 for Wegovy. I think that's important information. It's actually probably the most common question we get from patients and doctors is, I've heard there's these two different weight loss drugs. How do they compare? And so this is great data, and I think, as you're pointing out, the next steps are to talk to regulators, understand how we can use this and communicate this to doctors in the best way.
Well, let's talk about some of these numbers. So patients treated with Zepbound lost an average of 20% of their body weight over 72 weeks. Those who got Wegovy shed 14%. And I thought that was interesting because usually it's 15% weight loss for Wegovy. So why did it come in on the lower end?
Yeah, I think these numbers are pretty consistent with other studies. This was a US-based study where other studies have been global-based studies. So there could be slight differences here and in terms of the population that was enrolled. But overall, the numbers for both tirzepatide, Zepbound, and semaglutide, Wegovy, were very similar with their published previous studies of each one alone. But what's important is this is the first time they were studied in this head-to-head way where patients were randomized to get one or the other.
Dan, as I understand, you are not just the Chief Scientific Officer, but also an actual medical doctor.
Yes.
It's not just about weight loss for patients, right? It's also about keeping side effects as reduced as possible. There are other benefits to these drugs. Hopefully, reduces your risk of heart attacks. Also, maybe can reduce your risk of dementia in some ways. What's the more holistic picture about how your drug affected patients in this trial?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for pointing that out. Maybe just starting with side effects. This medication, Zepbound, has side effects. Most common side effects are related to GI tolerability. We were pleased with the data we saw. They were consistent with prior studies, which showed that this drug is actually highly tolerated by most people, and nearly everyone can stay on the drug and complete the trial. The other side of the coin are the myriad of benefits that could accrue as a consequence of weight loss. Just in the last year or so, we've read out studies on this medicine for patients with obstructive sleep apnea, where we showed that about half of the patients actually didn't even meet criteria for apnea at the end of the study. That's how much their disease improved. For heart failure, where we showed a 38% reduction in heart failure events for people on this medicine. And then most recently, and I think it was just astounding data, as we studied Zepbound in people who have pre-diabetes. They don't have diabetes yet, but they look like they'll go on to get it. And about 20% of patients on the placebo went on to get type 2 diabetes in the course of the trial. And nearly no one, actually, a 94% reduction in the incidence of type 2 diabetes on people who are on Zepbound. So all these kinds of studies show that losing weight and treating obesity can actually prevent or improve a number of other serious chronic diseases.
I'd love to go back to the competitive landscape here for a minute, because of course this study did show a significant differential, but the next catalyst that investors are looking out for also is when it comes to Novo Nordisk's CagriSema, and there's an expectation there of a 25% weight loss, and the data is due by year end. You know, how do you see that challenge playing out in terms of competitive positioning?
Yeah, let's see. I think it's a really great dynamic for patients and society here. Novo had the first monotherapy for obesity here. We had the first dual-acting GLP, GIP combined medicine here, which showed superiority today. But Novo now comes out with their own combination of two different actions here, GLP and cagrilintide. We haven't seen the data yet, so we'll have to wait and see how they do. And then Lilly Lilly, guess what? We have a triple-acting molecule now that's in phase 3 trial called retatrutide that combines 3 different incretins, and we'll look forward to getting that data in coming years. But what we're seeing, I think, is a breakthrough in the science that's allowing us to create more and more powerful medicines to the point where I hope most people with obesity will be able to get to a normal body weight with these medicines. Actually, in this trial, we saw a significant fraction of patients, almost a third of them on Zepbound, had 25% weight loss. That's just a life-changing number, and it was twice as likely to happen on Zepbound as on Wegovy in this trial.
Well, first of all, Dan, you make a great point. We talk about this race between Eli Lilly, this rivalship with Novo Nordisk. The ultimate winner is patients in this scenario. And you mentioned, of course, that larger trial that you're conducting for retatrutide right now. In a smaller trial, I believe, smaller study, it delivered 24% weight loss. What are your expectations from this larger study when it comes to weight loss?
Yeah, I don't know yet, but in that study, it was actually a shorter duration. It was less than a year. And at the end of the study, people were still losing weight. So I'm hopeful that in a larger study, a longer study, we could see even more, maybe get close to 30% body weight. These are levels of weight reduction, though, that are very comparable to what's been seen with bariatric surgery, which, although is obviously invasive and costly and dangerous procedure, but still many people benefit from bariatric surgery. And so to be able to offer that in a medicine is really a dream, and we're so excited by that.
Well, I mean, at a certain point, it becomes kind of a ridiculous arms race, right? I mean, do we lose 70% of our body weight? Isn't there a point where you work on other things besides reducing bigger and bigger percentages of your weight until somebody loses like 100%?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Of course, it's not an arms race. We're not making weapons of mass destruction here. We're making medicines that make people feel better. But you're right, there's diminishing returns at some point. And I think we're reaching that point soon. These medicines are strong enough that most people will be able to achieve a normal body weight. So what else can we offer patients as we continue to try and out-innovate each other to make better and better medicines? I would say one idea is oral. Many people prefer to take something in a pill than an injection. And so we have a pill coming. It's in phase 3 clinical trials. We're going to get the data next year. And we hope that it could give efficacy similar to GLP-1 monotherapy, maybe not quite as good as Zepbound. It's a single-acting incretin, but it should be a really easy-to-use pill that's widely available. So we're super excited about that.